Welcome to another episode of the Broxton Digital Show. My name is Broxton Davis. I'm a performance media analyst at one of the top advertising agencies in the world, as well as the host of the Broxton Digital Show, obviously. That's my podcast where I bring on some of the greatest minds of marketing and advertising and interview them in the sense of giving students and young professionals the insights and advice they need to dominate their early career, whether it be the job hunt, the first career role, or looking to get into that second role. The answers and advice you're looking for are here on this show. Whether it be a C-suite, a VP, a director, we bring on everybody and get their opinions and just hear what they have to say about marketing. And, you kind of end up learning all the industry secrets and knowledge that you probably wouldn't get to if you didn't have these conversations. So super cool. I'm here at MVP Collaborative, a local Detroit experiential ad agency. I actually got to tour here a while ago, and, one thing led to the next after some connections, and now I'm here filming an episode in their studio. I'm joined by Michael Kraft, their Vice President of Business Development and Strategy. How you doing today, Michael?
I'm good. How you doing?
Doing good. Thanks so much for inviting me here.
Hey, no, thank you. And I will praise you out of the gate here because we met back in the AdCraft Advance event
Yes.
back in January, maybe?
January, February?
Yeah,
of the year.
and you came up to us afterwards and you talked a lot. You wanted to learn about the business and what we do. And then you followed up with me. And then we met again at the Ford Field event. Like, just kudos to you for, staying on and reaching out to people. It's great.
Yeah, definitely. I think anybody listening, take that and that's kind of what you have to do to build these connections. Is it's not just a one, make a good first impression and then you have somebody who's ready to give you the world. You kind of got to nurture these connections and like Michael just said, running into them out in public, saying what's up, shaking hands, just being a friendly person, and then one thing leads to the next. And we were trying to find times to record this episode, and next thing you know, he was like, "Why don't you just come to my studio? We'll make this a little easier." So it worked out, and it definitely just goes to show it's worth nurturing these connections and building this network, especially when you're early in your career. But yeah, so I kind of want to just start. You do some really cool stuff. I don't work in experiential, obviously, and when I first kind of learned what it was and got to come tour MVP, I was kind of blown away at some of the stuff you guys get to do in your day to day, and just all the different things that happen within experiential, out or compared to the larger ad agency where I work. We're primarily dealing with media. So I would love for you to just kind of break down, what exactly you do, how did you kind of get into being the VP here, and we'll just kind of go from there.
Yeah, I will take you back for sure, because what's interesting about experiential is I think even for young people out of college or wherever, it's not a position, role, responsibility that you probably learn about in college. I never knew this was a job when I started out. I don't think many people do. But the interesting thing is, over my career, and I think over a lot of people's, you're doing things that represent experiential. You're bringing things to life. You're creating moments that people remember that really all encompass experiential, but you don't know you're doing experiential. So, where I am today, and then I can kind of take you back a little bit. I think over my career, like I said, I've always dabbled in it, always had passion for bringing ideas to life, and now I get to do that. And here, I've been here about 8 months now, and I came on, and my job here is not only to make brands look good and bring them alive and create experiences that people remember, but I get to reach out to companies that MVP has not talked to. And so I'm talking to people who I know. I'm reaching out to companies that are doing cool stuff, and we want to take them to the next level. So I'm excited every day I come in here. The people here are great, the company's great, we're doing great things. So it's been a great experience here. And I go back to the start of my career. I started at Bozell Advertising a long time ago. And I was there for 6-7 years. That was my first job out of college. And I went, a lot of people when they start an agency, they kind of, it's nice now because they get, and I think we talked about this too, is that you move around. 3 months you do strategy, 3 months you do account work. When I started there, I was I came right into an account planning role, which was a combination of account work and strategic planning. So I right out of college, that was my first job. And I worked on Chrysler brands, and I worked on the Plymouth brand, which You probably don't even know what that is.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
And Jeep for a little bit, and that was, I was learning research. I was learning everything about the consumer and about them, and then I kept in that role. And I went to Campbell-Ewald following that, and I was there for another 6 years, and I was on the Chevy truck business, and I was on the strategy side there, and I was again learning about buyers and trying to predict who's going to buy the next Chevy. We were working on the Trailblazer at the time, or in kind of formulating a picture, a story on what that person could be that we think will buy that car. So that was kind of my first 10, 15 years out of college. I was solely focused on strategy. And then I went to a company called Federal Mogul, and they have a ton of aftermarket auto brands there. But it was a venture for me to kind of do something a little different, and I ran brand. Basically, I ran the brand for Champion Spark Plugs, which is a long-time automotive brand in the business. So I got to do that for a couple of years and learn a whole different side of the business, from budgeting to I controlled advertising, I controlled media, I controlled everything from running that brand, and it was a great learning experience for me. Then I went on to another ad. So you'll see, I've been all over the board. The next I went to CBS, and CBS. There's different facets of CBS. There's CBS Radio, there's CBS News, which doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, they're huge.
Yes. And I was in a division called CBS Altitude. And for 6 years of my career, I ran that division out of Detroit, where I could go into a client and sell them all the different assets of CBS. So I would go in, I could pitch them CBS News, I could CBS Outdoor, CBS Radio, CBS TV, and kind of bundle those assets together. But not just selling media, we were like telling a story and able to bring all those assets together in a really cool way. So creating projects and creating ideas and creating campaigns, but based on different media. It was a really great job for me. I love it because I got to meet tons of different people, use different connections, and it came up with some really cool ideas. From there, I went to a company called Intersport, which is based out of Chicago. I helped open the office here in Detroit, and we worked on the Rocket Mortgage Classic, the golf event. It was a sports marketing company. It's not a sports marketing, sports experiential. So it kind of was my first foray into experiential there. And then before coming MVP for 6 years, I was at iHeartMedia here in Detroit, kind of doing what I was doing at CBS, where I was going after big brands and kind of bundling about assets together, coming with big ideas, not just selling media, like not selling spots and dots like on the radio, but actually bundling like cool ideas and involving national talent. So it was another great learning experience for me. And so I've kind of dabbled in strategy, media, research, budgeting, you name it. And it's nice to see like over the years how things I've touched.
Yeah, I can imagine there's probably a handful of times where you were like, man, this is not my favorite thing to be doing. But now looking back at it, I'm sure, the skills and the things you were able to learn from that long, different, all over the place kind of career, kind of paid off now.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, totally.
Well, that's so cool, and I definitely want to get into some of the previous roles and definitely your role here today, because I personally think your role here at MVP is super cool. For those of you listening that might not know what experiential is, because Michael's right, it's not talked about a lot in college. Like how he said, a lot of people don't hear it in classes. I came out of college having no idea what experiential was. Like coming here for the tour with Advance was my first ever exposure to it. So I was like, I'm going to learn something new that I've never seen before. That's kind of crazy, but, come to find out, it's a pretty big thing. But anyways, experiential is really just, any of the badass events, big activations at, Lollapalooza, different festivals, anywhere where there's, some sort of a brand activation, that's typically an experiential agency putting that on. And, people like Michael are the ones, bringing the customers in who need those cool activations. And obviously, brand people usually who probably are working in an office wearing suits aren't the people putting those crazy events together. It takes, a special team like what they have here at MVP. I'm sure we'll get into some stories, but it's kind of crazy what you guys are able to pull off in, a short time frame and just like crazy requirements to have it all, look good, and kind of you only get one shot at these activations.
Right. And
So
it's, the way I look at it too is because it could be exactly what you said, and it's also product launches, and it's also training, and it's fan experiences like you talked with music, but it's that next step. So you see a TV campaign or you hear a radio spot. It's actually putting the product in their hands, and the great thing is where digital or a TV campaign is 30 seconds long. You see it and it's gone. Experiential, if you give somebody a product or you're talking about them in person, you have their attention for 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes. Or we do a lot of B2B conferences with companies.
Okay.
You have those folks in a room for 2-3 days that they're like immersed in a product or immersed learning about something. So it just takes that next step from a campaign to like a visual experience, like a physical experience.
Yeah, I mean, how cool. I know there's, times in my job where I'm like, man, we're throwing all this money and all this stuff at ads, and it seems like, it's just not working, or you hear so many bad case studies of times where media hasn't worked. But, it's got to be so cool working in a space where, like, when you're doing these big, crazy events, everybody's excited to be there. Really, the only thing that can go wrong is, like, if the event doesn't happen how it's supposed to. So, still super high risk, high stakes, but very cool as well compared to, sometimes with, I feel like media, there's just not a lot you can control sometimes.
Yeah, the worst thing you can do is be in their way. Like you talk about at concerts and such, but if you're blended in and you make sense and you have a right to be somewhere, people will stop. People will take the time to learn about whatever you're showing off or showing visually. Maybe it's a new car. You can capture their attention if if you're there for a reason and it makes sense. People will stop and listen and learn, and that's the win.
Yeah, definitely. I want to get into a little bit deeper just into your current role here at MVP. Sure. So obviously I think there's probably a good amount of listeners right now who are probably thinking, that sounds like a pretty badass role, getting in new business, planning these super cool events, kind of just, you saying that you're excited every day to show up. There's not many jobs out there where, somebody can say that. So I really want to hear, though, you being on the new business side of things. I think, there's probably a good amount of people who are young professionals right now. Obviously, you don't really start acquiring new business, but as you get into your career, it's definitely something where a lot of people look. There's a lot of good opportunities there, but you don't really get that exposure at this age. So I'm just curious, I kind of want to hear what that kind of looks like, just, bringing in new business, finding people to contact, just kind of how the whole process works, how you work your magic and bring new business here at MVP.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it starts with exactly what you did at Advance. It's about making relationships. Even way back when I started, I'm still either friends or I still talk to a lot of those clients or people I worked with that have gone on to do bigger things and have moved on from the agency side. They're running client brands or CMOs. I've kept those relationships. So that's an amazing starting point for me. And that's when I came in here day one, that's exactly what I did. I went down my list and okay, I know these people at these brands. I've met these people at these brands. That's who I'm going to start with. And that's why I've had success here so far, is because that's what I've done. And exactly what you did at Advance is you came up to me, you came up with some other folks I work with, and you've probably done it and you guys went to different companies every week. And relationships are so key. There's nothing bigger than a great relationship, because you can pitch somebody and you can cold emails and cold calling, but having a relationship and having met someone gets you in the door, gets you that next step. That's like a key takeaway for anyone like new in the business is start establishing relationships, because that'll take you a long ways. I could name so many people that I've come up in the business with that I'm working with now, which has been great.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can only imagine over that long of a career being at so many different companies, the amount of people you made, but obviously if you're somebody who was just, kind of just the person at the agency, said good morning, whatever, you call that person 20 years later and try to get them to spend tens of thousands of dollars on advertising, they're probably gonna be like, who's this guy? You kind of got to find a way to stay top of mind, or at least be somebody who when you say, hey, how's it going? They're like, oh my God, Michael, great to see you, rather than, who was this, some random person I worked with before,
Totally, 100%. It's the best thing. It's like you said, it's staying top of mind. with people you've met, go, like, highly recommend, go to Kraft events, go to any event that you know there's people speaking with, go up to them afterward, just say hello. And the best thing you can do too is send a follow-up email afterwards. Say, hey, I met you at Kraft. It was great meeting you. You know, maybe someday we can grab coffee, something, or hey, you spoke. I love what you spoke about this. Just a little note, and then it gives you a good follow-up point, so that when you're ready to pitch something or you have an idea, you have a lane. It's a great way it comes back to relationships. I tell everybody that. It's like, I can't stress that enough, how strong relationships are in this business, especially here, like in Detroit. Like, we're not, we're not Chicago. We're not with the mega agencies. Like, we're not LA and New York. We're Detroit, and so that circle is a little bit smaller. So actually, and it can be an advantage being here too, because that circle is smaller, and you can reach more people. And there's big, talking about Detroit, there's big brands here. There's huge brands here.
Yeah.
All the pizza brands are here.
Yeah.
The big three are here. And that gives you great lanes to either make relationships or to reach out. And from a new business perspective, back to what you were talking about, is that's exactly what I've done here is focus on people I knew. That's, I could have started with cold reaching out to emails. Hey, reaching out to companies who I don't know. I'm on LinkedIn all day, and I stress that too. Is LinkedIn is a great place to seek out, talk to people, send email, anything. But I started with relationships, and it's been great success so far.
No, definitely. I mean, I think that's a super unique approach too. Like, most people you ask, they're going to probably say those things that you mentioned is like, oh, well, I built this insane cold email system, or I built this insane cold outreach. Or, a lot of people are on the phones all day dialing.
Yeah,
and
right.
I think, using your warm leads, it goes back to kind of what you were saying, like, just like how you're doing that to drive new business at MVP. I think really, like, students and young pros need to kind of take that. And that's also how you build a network is, like, prime example that you gave. And then I kind of had the same thing play out in real life is like, I met you here at that tour. Yeah. We chatted, whatever. It was nothing. You probably went home and had dinner and forgot about it. But then followed up. You were already like a warm lead technically for my network. I followed up. You kind of knew who I was, so you didn't respond. And then, we hopped on a one-on-one call, and things kind of went from there. It goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like, you have to, just like if you're trying to sell something, if you're trying to build a network that's going to be valuable for you, you have to, put into that network what you want to get out of it. And obviously, it holds true in sales too. I think you're doing pretty good so far since you've been here at MVP, and that strategy seems to be working for you.
Yeah, no, it's been great. I've been here 8 months. The company's great. The culture here is great. We're a smaller company. We kind of see ourselves as like a big boutique agency where we cover everything. Like I talked about before, we've worked on product launches. We work on sales conferences. We do a ton of video and activations and fan experiences, and training is a big thing. And you talked about, a success here so far. And it really, like, back to like my day one, I was going through relationships. I'm like, I know a lot of people at Stellantis. I'm gonna start there, and because we haven't done much with Stellantis as a company in MVP. So I started there and started talking to people, and within, a month or a few weeks, we got a big RFP for a training tour that Stellantis wanted to do in 2026. We gathered our group together, brainstormed on some ideas, brought in some other folks that we knew would help us out, and we pitched. We got invited to a follow-up presentation, and we won that business. It was great. The tour has been great. It kicked off in March, end of March, early April, and it ends in end of June. And it's going to 20 cities around the country. It's a week in every city. And it's basically training dealership folks, and 15,000 dealership folks across the country getting them all excited about what's to come for Stellantis in the next year or two. And it's training, it's getting them excited, it's getting them to drive the cars. But the cool thing from our perspective is they had the idea, like, hey, we want to bring this back. We haven't done this training tour in 10 years or so. Where we came in, like, we weren't just about, hey, let's just come up with some basic stuff. We were like, they challenged us to be outrageous, and we went big time outrageous with some huge ideas, and they loved our thinking. That's what we brought to them, was this creative thinking that they hadn't seen before, and they told us how we blew people away with some of the ideas we brought to the table. And so that tour's going on now. It's been great. It's got a couple weeks left in it, but the buzz factor around it, and it's great. It's been, it's not about us. It's really about Stellantis and how it's making them look good from internally and an internal perspective, but then also from a social media perspective, like the people that are attending these events, like we're seeing the actual results, and the feedback has been amazing. And the social media, we encourage people at all these events and to take pictures and video. There's a guy on Instagram, our first week, I think he's got over 7.5 million views on a story he posted about being in this event, and how excited he was to drive the new Dodge Charger and do this and rev the engine and learn about all these new product attributes that are coming down. Like, that's cool because we had a hand in that. But again, it's about getting Stellantis, like, getting all what's coming. So we've been part of that process. It's been great.
Yeah,
it's fun.
I can imagine. From, like, I always think of everything in a performance lens, because that's just, what I'm doing on the day-to-day.
Yeah.
And it's kind of crazy to think that all those millions of impressions and views came at no extra cost. Typically, it'd be like, you got to increase your budget by X amount if you want this, where,
Right.
We just did the event good, and this was kind of, after effect of that.
Right.
I've kind of heard, I've just seen, on LinkedIn, definitely heard people talk about it, is that, some advertisers are recommending, hey, go and do some crazy, ballsy experiential, and you might have better results on social than you would dumping a bunch of money into influencers or partnerships like that. So it's super cool, and I definitely think with, like, we're fully post-COVID, AI is kind of going crazy and still drawing people into screens. I think, experiential has become so important, and is definitely, like, in my head, I don't know, you see it in the day-to-day, but in my head, it's only going to get bigger and bigger as, people kind of crave authenticity and real experiences.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great way to get somebody to see a product, to touch a product, to visually see something that they'll see on a digital screen for 6 seconds or whomever. It just expands that and gets that warm body in person. It's great. The engagement factor is huge.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's got to be one of the most rewarding parts. And just, like, I'm thinking about it, like, I've seen a million products come across my iPad as I'm scrolling through where, like, the way you deliver a product in person at an event, at an activation is totally unique, and, like, a one opportunity to show somebody your product in a way they haven't already been, somebody's tried to sell them that same product 5 different ways probably if they're seeing it online.
Yeah.
So
we're working on something for a brand I can't say yet.
All good. Yeah, I get it.
It's a new type of car that they asked us to do some thinking around it, and we responded, and we pitched it this week and came up with some really, like, off the wall ideas and cool thinking around it that that'll be something that hopefully comes to fruition, because the company, the brand that brought it to us, want to do something kind of small and do this. We kind of went big and, like, no, to reach this audience, you got to do this, you got to do this. And so we brought some really cool thinking to it. So that part of it's, like, really fun. Like, I have a lot of passion around, like, ideation is huge.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I haven't got to do it a ton in my career, but when you do have an idea and kind of do all the work that, makes it happen, get it in front of the right people, and then it finally does come to fruition, it's super awesome, and I can tell, obviously, you're passionate about it just by talking about it. I also think, like, how cool that you get to sit as the vice president of new business and kind of be responsible and get to work with that, but then, that doesn't mean you're out of the strategy room planning these crazy activations that you sold. You're also kind of, living in both worlds.
No, and that's the fun thing about here is, like, we're small. So, like, everyone's jumping in and doing everything. I mean,
nobody's saying that's not my job.
I mean, yeah, no, I went and picked up some tents today from a company. Like, everybody's doing everything to pitch in. We're a small, nimble company, but, like, we have these huge ideas, and it's great. It's really fun. Like just stuff that's coming out of here is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten to see some of it, and I can only imagine, as you guys grow and continue to do more, I'm definitely excited to see what comes out of here. I want to get into as well, you talk about, all these different brands and all these different places you've worked, and you've kind of, got to see things from a lot of different perspectives, which I'm sure helps you in sales calls now. Is like you kind of know, the people in this room need this, the people in this room need this. How can I kind of make that work? But, I would just kind of love to hear your take on what you would recommend to, students and young professionals on kind of how to navigate that and, what the pros and cons are of, staying agency side, switching up and going brand side after being a few years, and maybe kind of what you would recommend around that.
Yeah, for sure. My, whatever number of years, 13 years, I was on the agency side, and I went over to the client side. And I was at Stellantis when at the time it was FCA, and I was running Chrysler advertising, and I can't even tell you the number of people said to me, like, how are you gonna go from the agency to the client side? Like, how do you do that? Like, I can't tell you how many people ask that question. And the best thing about it was that you get to see both sides, right? So from an agency perspective, what I've learned and seen is clients don't understand the amount of work that an agency does. It's ridiculous, from deck preparation to writing to like anything, timing and deadlines, and the stress. The stress is huge, obviously.
Yes, that is a big one.
So from an agency perspective and looking at clients don't see that and don't get that. And then from a client perspective, looking at an agency, like I realized like agency folks don't realize there's similar stress going on internally at an agency. There's budgeting, but there's also this hierarchy of selling an idea, because an agency person can have a great idea and then you pitch it to the client side, but there's so many layers on a client side that to get an idea sold, like it's pretty hard. So that if you talk about agency versus client, it's the apples and oranges, like it's completely different. But the nice thing for me, and I know other people got to do it, have done it as well, you kind of get to see both sides. So now being back on the agency side, I have a lot of empathy for a client, and I kind of know what they're going through. So it helps me navigate waters a little easier. Like, oh, I know how they're going to think about this, and I know how many people they have to pitch it to, so that I kind of keep that in mind as I'm developing ideas. Because I know it's not just, hey, here's an idea. Like it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, no, it definitely does not. And, it's super cool to kind of hear you say that, because I think a lot of people come in. I know, like, I'm a super innovative, ambitious person. And even on the agency side, you got to get your ideas through the levels before anybody's going to say, all right, let's throw this at the clients or something. And, sometimes you can almost be over ambitious and just, like, kind of throwing stuff at the wall and hoping it sticks. So you definitely got to be strategic early on, like, what ideas do I bring to the table and kind of how do I go about doing it. But definitely from what you're saying, it sounds like having that agency experience definitely paid off when you decided to go client side.
For sure, 100%. And you talk about, your career, and I think about things that if I could go back in time, like, I think a couple things, and you talked about, like, you have ideas and how do you pitch them. I always think about the biggest thing you can do as a younger person in this business is listen. Like, listen and try to go to as many meetings as you can. Like, I don't need to go to that meeting. Go to every meeting you can. Listen. And honestly, I would tell people, write down everything a client says, or even if they're okay with it, record it and go back, because that's where you're going to hear nuances. You're going to hear their passion for a project. You're going to hear little things that you might not catch. And not being in the room, you're going to hear, it's like third hand at that point. By the time you hear about, oh, the client wants to do this. Well, you weren't in the room to hear that. So I encourage you, if your agency allows, go to every meeting you can. Just be a fly on the wall. Be in the back. Take notes. Listen. And honestly, if you can record it, and then just go back and listen to every word they talk about. Anything that comes out of a client's mouth, that you really want to grasp that.
Yeah, definitely. No, that makes a lot of sense. And like, I definitely can agree with you there. There's been times where I've definitely been in a meeting where like it doesn't really pertain to your day to day or doesn't pertain to even
Yeah.
like a project you're working on. And next thing you hear a little slip up of like, oh, there is something I could actually
Yeah,
provide some
because
value for.
you may find hear something in me like, I'd love to work on that. Like, it's a different angle you never thought of at the agency. Like, oh, that's a cool thing. Maybe I want to work on that. And then you kind of find your path. Like, it opens up other doors.
Yeah, definitely. No, I couldn't agree more. And just kind of goes to what we were talking about earlier of just like putting yourself out there and finding as many ways to like maximize the impression you're making on people is, it's definitely never going to move you back. It's always going to be a positive, I would say.
Yeah.
I definitely want to get into as well. We kind of brought it up earlier is that, we're in this, kind of almost small town feeling Detroit scene.
Yeah.
I'm from a small town myself. I grew up in Sandusky, Michigan. And so like coming to Detroit was a pretty big culture shock and just like hustle and bustle of the city, driving in rush hour all the time. It definitely was a lot of adjusting, but now kind of getting into advertising, I kind of see like, it's almost like some back home vibes with, the people I run into and, you go to these big ad craft events, but everybody on a first name basis. It's pretty crazy. So I would love to just kind of get into, how you've built your career here in Detroit, obviously staying here in Detroit.
For sure.
And, I think it's just like a pretty common thing right now. A lot of people in college see the glitz and glamour of New York or see these crazy agencies that are doing really amazing work in Chicago. And, they kind of get that of like, maybe that's the only option. I know when I was in college, I thought it was like Chicago or bust. And now I'm loving being in Detroit here. So yeah, would just love to hear your take on that.
For sure. I was born and raised here in Detroit. So I've been around this culture. I've been around the companies that are here. I've just kind of grown up, like just being grounded here. So for me, staying here, coming out of college, it was like, that's what you do. Like, I honestly didn't think, I didn't even know I wanted advertising coming out of college. I got a degree in marketing and I just kind of happened to end up in advertising. It probably is just the path that led me. It was great. And the nice thing, and I think I mentioned this before, the nice thing about Detroit is it's small enough that you get to know a lot of people. It's not the huge Chicago's and LA agencies. It's, you're Publicis. There's Publicis agents, huge in Chicago and other cities. But they're smaller. The brands like that you work on here. But the nice thing is if you're able to work on the automotive side of the business here, we've got the big three here. There's so many opportunities to learn from an automotive manufacturer, not just advertising, but like there's so many different departments there, from marketing to brand level to budgeting to accounting to experiential. You have so many different opportunities that you can get into and you can learn about, where if you're in a larger city, I don't think you'd have those opportunities. And just from meeting people and, the AdCraft group here in Detroit is amazing. That doesn't exist like in other markets like it does here in Detroit because people know each other, which is great. And I think that will help you in your career because you're establishing those relationships young. And I think also having relationships is kind of a common thing with me, is that's how you succeed. Once you get to know people, again, like I talked about, you can throw an idea in front of somebody, but if they don't know you, there's no trust there. But once you get to know somebody and they sort of trust you, they'll take your ideas day or night. Like, oh, that's a cool idea, yeah. And they recognize you, and I think so. Again, back to Detroit, and it's a smaller market. There's just a ton of opportunity here, and yeah, a lot of people leave Detroit and go on to sometimes bigger things. But a lot of people come back, and the thing too is on your side of the business, I always found that it was easier to work with, let's call it media folks or media buyers, when they know you're from Detroit, and there was that commonality there, and you could see it like when people come from out of town. There was just a different vibe and different feeling. But when they know you're from Detroit and you're talking to a fellow Detroiter and you're talking about this business and you're talking about brands that are here, we have a ton of big brands here. It's just it's an edge that you have that a lot of other markets don't have.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would just say overall, Detroit is such a unique market. I know I was super shocked coming in of just like how many people are so willing to help you and
Yeah.
kind of dump into you like the same amount that they would if you were a student. I kind of figured like once I lose that student title and I can't say in my LinkedIn messages like I'm a student trying to learn, people would
Right.
start ignoring me. But no, like I've kind of had the same experience here as a
Yeah.
young professional. I'm almost a year in, and it's just been great. The amount of people who, have really made me feel that Detroit love, so to speak. And it definitely from the people I do know that have moved to those other markets too, like that's kind of what they say is, it's a little more alienated, not as much opportunity to, bring those ideas like we talked about to the table. And then also just, not as probably as fun and enjoyable on the day to day. Not to say that those markets are bad or that you shouldn't go there, but
Yeah.
definitely, if you're feeling like you're in Detroit and you like being home, there's definitely a lot going on here too in advertising.
Tons. Yeah.
Definitely. So to kind of get into this too, this is definitely going to be a fun topic to talk about, especially being that I'm getting to talk with an experiential person about it. I bring in, CMOs, VPs, a lot are more on the, search, digital marketing side, performance side. So we have a lot of conversations around that, which I think performance media is like super important, great backbone to have if you need to drive some revenue in tough times.
Yeah.
That's kind of what you turn to. But now the other side of it is that, everybody's getting obsessed with AI. Every company, it's a race to how can we integrate AI. There's even, companies that are kind of in a race of how many people can we replace with AI as fast as possible, where in the experiential world, it's kind of almost the opposite of like, we're creating human experiences that, it's what AI can't come up with. It's what humans can only come up with. So
Right.
I think it's going to be super cool. I just want to hear like, what are kind of your thoughts with, the industry's kind of current obsession with that? And I definitely would love to hear any takes on like where you think experiential is going to grow because of that, or, where they can fit in to be, even bigger for people.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm a huge fan. Like, I use it all the time.
I mean, who's not? Yeah,
Yeah,
like don't
like,
take that as me sitting here
no,
bashing on
it's-
it.
it's-
Great tool, use it. But like, I
I-
also love to see like the other side of it as well, just because it doesn't get talked about as much.
Totally. And I use it on a personal basis. I use it for work as well. But it has its limitations. It can only do so much. So, on a business perspective, I use it, maybe, and if I'm doing a pitch or a presentation, photo development, like I want to create an idea. It'll bring stuff to life for me, which is great. It's been great for that. Or refining, some wording in a deck. Like, I think that part is phenomenal. But like you said, it can only do so much. So I don't, to that it can't go to the next step. It can't bring a product to life in someone's hands. It can't. There's no like tangible asset that comes from it. So I think from an experiential perspective, we use it a little bit in what we do, but it can't replicate what we can do in front of a person looking at a new Ram truck, or surrounding them with visual cues and having some games on site. It doesn't do that. It's definitely intelligence form that we use, and everybody should use it to a certain degree, but it can't replicate that you talked about before, like a live experience in front of somebody. It just can't. But
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, and like I think it's super cool to kind of see. Well, I guess it's super cool for you to be able to say what you're saying about AI and kind of what you guys are able to come up with. But like looking at it from the other lens of like my job has to do a lot with looking at data and figuring out what it means. AI is great at that, so it's like it's
Right.
just knowing what it's good at and what it's not, and being in a vertical where you can kind of let those creative juices flow, and like you say, just kind of use it to help but not be the main driver. Where
Yeah.
I'm finding definitely times in my day to day where like I'm like AI could be doing this way faster than humans. Like we might as well just be doing it that way.
Right.
And it's accurate and everything like that, and super crazy. So it's
Right.
it's cool that there's both sides, and I think it's refreshing to hear that at least I think, and I would love to hear your take on it too, is like experiential I think is really on the up and up. I've seen some really crazy brand activations so far in 2026, and I
Yeah.
think it's only going to get crazier as we move on here.
Agree. Yeah, it's there's you only get a certain amount of time with a consumer, and again, like you show them a commercial on TV, great, you capture them for 30 seconds and you capture their attention, but in person and them touching and feeling, getting them inside a truck, seeing a truck on a commercial is great. You can see, oh, I can do that. It lives up to that. But like when you put somebody in a certain truck or you put them in an experience, it changes their mindset big time. And we see it. We see it in the data. Like you go from here to like here, and they become fans, and they'll buy in. They'll buy it. They'll buy. Like that's the point. A commercial can only take them so far, but by touching, feeling, and experience, like, wow, this is what it feels like to be. I didn't even know that. Like, and then you have somebody telling them about the product, and then they're doing something around it, and they become fans. And then when they tell people, and it's a win.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Like, I run a Google search ads. Like, you see a search ad, and I feel like it's nudging you, maybe a centimeter closer to the purchase every time. You actually get to like feel the power of a V8. You're like, all right, I need this. It's totally different things. So it's super cool.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah.
How is AI affecting Google search and search, SEO and all that? Because I've been reading a ton about that and how AI, like it's affecting results in AI enough that you can like skew it a little bit, but like there's definitely big time involvement.
No, yeah, there's kind of two things that I think are happening. Is one, there are a ton of people taking advantage of like with AI being a new cool thing, and just it's different. People are using it in different ways than they've traditionally used Google. A lot of people have jumped on the opportunity to kind of package traditional SEO services or traditional pay-per-click services and say like, we're helping you show up in LLMs, we're LLM visibility or AEO, and are making a lot of money off of it. When a lot of the foundational stuff still kind of stays the same. There are definitely some big changes with how people are utilizing search, though. Yeah. One big thing I've noticed is just the way people interact with search. A lot of searching is more done conversationally now, rather than, not saying that people are only doing it with their voice, but just even the way they type is very long form, very much exact specifics. They know that like Google is powered with Gemini Flash, and it's going to find them exactly what they want if they give it enough detail. And as the more people that start to figure that out, especially just like running search query reports on Google Ads accounts, you start to see some of these crazy, like it's almost like the person's having a conversation with the search bar, and it's like, typically you'd like obviously add that as like a negative keyword. It's like, oh, this is some weird search that popped up, but with how crazy data tracking is and LLM attribution, it's pretty crazy how I think Google can take those searches and like based off of previous data and previous site visits and previous things people have seen, match them with an ad that leads them to purchase eventually. And it's pretty crazy, and I think it's gonna continue to change. I know like they just had their big Google I/O announcements and Google Marketing Live, and a lot of stuff's happening there, and like there's definitely a lot of up in the air of, is AI mode going to become the default for Google, or are we going to keep using the search bar? They changed the search bar after Google Marketing Live, and that was like a huge ordeal. So it's a very big thing, and I think it moves kind of slow, even though the AI stuff is very rapid and happening like crazy. The search engines are a little bit behind, but definitely like the landscape is changing, and being on top of it is going to be like, the people who stay on top of it in 2026, 2027, 2028 are going to be able to find, I think, one of the first times in a while where you'll be able to find some new opportunities to leverage and, make money and drive pipeline with something like Google Ads, being that, things are changing.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I get in my car in the morning, it's powered by Gemini. And it'll say, hey, Michael, welcome, your day. Here's your day. And it tells me my day.
Yeah, they added the daily brief thing. It's so cool.
It's so cool. It's like, here's your day, and here's your route to work, and here's this and this. It's amazing.
Well, it's kind of the other side of it, too, is Google knows so much about everybody. Like, I've had it's like davisproxton@gmail.com. I've had that thing since I was like, probably since I got like my first tablet as a kid and was like needed an email to download games. And I've had that thing ever since. They know so much about me. It's unreal. Sure. So, like, no wonder they can show me the perfect ad at the perfect time. They've watched me do this for, probably like 15 years now of just Google searching and messing around on Gmail, being on, all the different Google platforms. So it's pretty crazy. And I think like as they continue to become, bigger and bigger company and get more fully integrated to where like, if you're using the Google tech stack, you just continue to use Google products rather than ever switching.
Exactly.
Whoever has the data wins. And I think Google is doing a great job at getting the data. And it's going to be really interesting to see how things continue to change as, AI continues to develop. And Google, I'm sure, will start to pick, more of a route of this is exactly where we're heading right now. So
interesting.
But yeah, it's super cool and something I hear about so much, and I've definitely spent a lot of time like trying to figure out and trying to research. So it's a super fun topic to talk about. And like, that's the kind of thing where the obsession in the industry is like, that makes sense. You kind of would want to be obsessed when there's an opportunity to maybe, do something that's never been done before, drive pipeline in a new way on a traditional media channel. But yeah, like what we were talking about before too, is you can't only focus on that. There's a whole other layer to that. And I don't know. I think the example of like seeing a Google ad compared to getting behind the wheel of something with a V8 in it is just like it's night and day. But I think one doesn't live without the other.
Yeah, right. I agree.
So yeah, that was actually I did want to ask you before we kind of wrap up. So we heard about some of the cool stuff that you work on, and I'm sure you have a plethora of crazy stuff you've gotten to work on. But I want to hear like from your perspective, what would you say something you've seen either like this year or recently, something where you think like that is a killer experiential activation. I wish my name could have been on that.
Ooh, that's a good question.
There's so many. One thing that comes to mind for me is the Canva activation that they did in New York where they had all the squirrels and like the squirrel worshiping. That was insane. And they had like, I'm a pretty big fan of Breaking and Entering Media. They do a podcast in New York where they like cover advertising news, and they're younger guys, and they were like out there live recording and like trying to figure out what was going on. Like they were drawing a ton of eyes with this really wacky off the wall stuff. So
that's so cool. My favorite, and I couldn't even tell you the brands. I love when they meld different media together. Like there was a campaign in New York recently I saw, and it involved the billboards. It was in Times Square. It was every touch point as you walk through New York. There was on-site activation. That's for me when you see that 360, like it's all these different touch points coming together. Because you can hit somebody wherever they are, and at the same time it comes together. That I can't remember the brand it was, but it was really like that. That for me,
was it the Cheetos one?
It might.
They had the Cheeto fingerprints.
Yeah.
All over everything.
That was
in
one
New
of
York.
them too. That was really cool too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy how like you could never do that with just traditional advertising. Like that was totally something.
No.
That was probably something somebody came up with, and probably I bet somebody, at least one person in that room, was like, "This is a horrible idea. This is stupid." But it ends up being something crazy like that. That's making headlines.
Agree. Yeah.
So to kind of get towards the last segment here, this is my favorite segment of the show. I do it every time. It's the rapid fire value segment where we'll do some fun questions, some more professional ones, with the goal of just providing as much valuable and like actionable insights for students and young professionals to go out and like start making a change in their day-to-day life, something they can implement, today, tomorrow, that's going to help them move the needle forward.
Yeah.
So to get started, it's funny, I actually just interviewed a guest from New York last night and got his take on New York pizza, so I would love to hear from you. Where's the best place to get pizza in Detroit?
I would go, probably my favorite right now is Supino's in Detroit, downtown.
Okay, I don't think I've tried Supino's yet.
Really?
Yeah, no.
Oh, yeah, you got to.
Okay.
You have to. It's really good. That's probably my favorite right now.
Okay.
It changes a lot, but that seems to be my go-to right now.
Yeah, I know a lot of people really ride the Buddies wagon pretty hard. I like Buddies, but I definitely love like a very authentic Italian place as well.
Yeah, I'm like the thinner kind of crust. I don't love Detroit style pizza. So I like more of that New York style, but hey,
Oh yeah, everybody's got their own taste.
Right.
No, that's great. Yeah, I mean, by the time I decide to be done with this show, I will have so many insane pizza spots to hit. It's going to be awesome. Yeah. So to kind of get a little bit more on the professional note, what would you say right now for students and young professionals, what would be the number one soft skill you'd be telling them to hone in on if there's one?
Listen. Well, can I say two?
Yeah.
It's listen. Listen, to podcasts. Listen, if you want to learn about a client, you want to learn about an industry, listen to podcasts, listen to anybody in that genre that's speaking. Just listen and take all that in. But then I'd also say is like, and I keep coming back to what you've done, like relationships. Just establish those relationships early on and maintain them. Go to where these people are. Talk to them on LinkedIn. Follow up, and it goes a long way. Trust me.
Yeah, definitely two very important soft skills that have paid off big for me, and I definitely would recommend anybody listening definitely lean in on those. Michael's definitely right there. To kind of go back to the fun side, we talked a lot about cars on this episode. Mm-hmm. I would love to hear, back when you broke into advertising, what were you driving, and what do you drive now?
Oh, this'll date me, but I was driving an '86 Corolla SR5.
Okay.
A limited edition hatchback Toyota. That was my first car, and I was driving that when I started in advertising. Yeah.
Did you like it? were you like looking to move away from it?
It was a manual, so I had to learn that. But that was, and then ever since then I've driven, not kidding, I've driven Jeeps pretty much my whole life after that.
Jeep guy.
Yeah, a long time. Yeah.
What are you in right now?
Grand Cherokee.
Grand Cherokee.
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Just got out of a Wrangler, so now I'm a Grand Cherokee.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
Dang, most people who go Wrangler usually don't go away from a Wrangler after.
I know.
It's crazy. No, that's awesome though. Jeeps are an awesome vehicle to have in Detroit for sure. Kind of go back to a little bit more of the professional side here. Right now, what would you say in your day-to-day, what is the number one tool you're using that's really moving the needle for you that you'd recommend?
Great question.
The reason I ask is because just like it's almost like there's information overload on how many tools there are out there. So I love to hear like, what are you actually hopping on in your day-to-day of like, I want to get stuff done. This is what I'm using.
For me, it's a little different because I like to listen to people speak in different industries. So like, it's not such a tool. I mean, maybe it falls into the podcast realm, but if I put my new business hat on and I'm focusing on, let's think about the banking industry, because I am right now, like that's an area I'm going after. And I will pull up 10, 15 different podcasts of people that either are into the industry or just to learn, because one of the biggest things you can do is be intelligent when you speak to somebody, when you're pitching them or you're meeting them for the first time. You need to know their industry. You need to know as much as you can. Going into a meeting blind and not knowing anything about their industry is death. It's just it's not a good thing. But if you go in and you're educated and you seem somewhat intelligent about what they do and their space, it goes a long way. So it's not necessarily a tool, but it's something I do.
Right. It's more so than like a one basic tool. It's like use the stuff you have everyday access to, like Google, to make sure that like you are locked in on whatever conversation you're going to be going into next. Because like that, I mean, that is so important. The second you say something where you use the wrong terminology or wrong verbiage, immediately like everybody in the room's like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
Right.
So
I
think that's great advice.
And I'll balance it too. Is not only learn about their industry, but learn about them. Like take some time and peruse their Facebook and their socials and learn what they post about and just kind of get a personal viewpoint of the person you're meeting with. That will go a long way too. That'll help that relationship come together. Oh, your son plays in Little League too? Oh, my son plays in Little League. Like there's, you try to find a bond there. It helps.
Definitely, and just like having them back pocket too. That's one of the things I love to do is like have some personal thing just ready to go. So if they do want to continue conversating with you, you can whip that out, and they're like, oh my god, this guy knows everything about me.
Right.
I'm definitely going to challenge you a little bit with this one. I want you to think back to when you were my age, just kind of getting into advertising, maybe a year or so in. What was the best piece of advice that was given to you at that time?
It's the piece I mentioned earlier. Go to any meeting you can. I remember my first year, my first or second year, I knew nothing. I didn't know much about the car industry. I was working on some of the Chrysler brands. I was learning about research, and I was learning about numbers, and I was learning about demographics of car buyers. And I would go to meetings I probably shouldn't have been in, just with higher level people, sitting in the back and listening to them speak and learning just the verbiage and learning everything about what they were talking about and pitching. And I'm like, I would just, like I said, I would sit in the back of the room, just taking all that in. So any meeting you can go to, like ask for permission. If there's 20 people, just sit in the back and the owner's usually taking notes, whatever it is, just try and get involved any way you can. And then that's a good way. Oh yeah, you meet somebody, go up to talk to a client afterwards, just introduce yourself. I highly recommend that. And that'll lead to relationships. That'll lead to you listening stronger and learning better and being more educated. It just kind of well rounds you.
Yeah, no, I think that's really refreshing to hear. I'm glad you brought it up again because it's an important point, but it's refreshing to hear of like, you a lot of times probably frown upon a day full of meetings, but it's like, if you go into those meetings with like a goal and like I'm going to use the information in this meeting to try to get something good for myself, I think it makes, doing a day full of meetings a lot better than just, sitting there, not listening, that kind of thing. So
it's actually probably a meeting you want to go to, right?
yeah, no, it's crazy. And I'm like I said, I'm glad you brought it up twice, because I know the first time you brought it up, there was definitely at least a couple people listening who are going to be like, dude, I go to enough meetings. I'm not doing any more meetings. So
Right. Now, these are the fun ones, right?
yeah, no, especially when you walk away like, oh my God, now I'm in on something that I wouldn't have been in on.
Like, oh my God, I got to see a pitch, or I got to. You probably don't get invited to those meetings many times, but there's enough people in the room that you can sit in the back, and like it can only help your career. It's never going to hurt,
Yeah, definitely. Last one for you here, Michael, and this one's not like so much in the sense of providing value, but I just am curious to hear, what would you say is the coolest thing you've gotten to work on in your career?
Cool. Okay, I have a couple. I'll give you one. I was working at CBS on the national side way back, and a client came to us saying, we're a male-oriented brand. We sell to men that are 18-34, and they're an energy drink, energy shot, and they want to reach women. That at the time it was a pretty big hurdle.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So racked our brains, and they were coming out with a product that was going to be, it was kind of like a different type of shot that was going to gear towards women. And we came up with a super, super cool idea that we created a music event out in LA at the Hollywood Bowl in LA. We had, being at CBS, we had connections to CBS Music, CBS Records, and we lined up a ton of top female artists, some that were breaking through at the time, some were more established. One that was coming up was Taylor Swift at the time.
Oh, wow, yeah.
We had Jennifer Lopez, we had Gwen Stefani, like the lineup was sick. But the cool thing about it wasn't just hey, we're going to have a concert. Like, we gave this brand a purpose to be there. We centered around breast cancer awareness, and they were a brand anyways that was already donating to that cause, but never probably getting credit for it, brands like that. So we took that kind of the next step, and we created this breast cancer awareness concert out in LA, donated all the proceeds to breast cancer awareness. It was sponsored by this brand. And it was a huge hit. And that was probably 10, 12 years ago. And I think that was the first year we came up with that idea, and that concert play was on for another 7 or 8 years. So that was like, I loved it. It was amazing how well that worked out, and how cool it was, and how it gave money back, and it was for the right reasons. But again, there was an underlying reason to be there, because they wanted to, pitch their new product to women. But it was still there was a better reason to be there because of that. So it was cool.
Yeah, no, that sounds awesome. Like, it's rare to have a big project like that where you literally check all the boxes, and it sounds like you guys did. So that's how cool to be able to say you were part of it.
And you talked earlier about, like, I didn't even know I was doing experiential at the time, because not only did we have ads on radio and TV promoting this, we had their product on every seat at the Hollywood Bowl, and they were handing out product as they walked in. Like, I was touching experiential, and I didn't even know I was touching experiential at the time. So it was pretty cool.
I mean, look what it led to now.
Exactly right. Yes.
Awesome. Well, that is all I had for the rapid fire value segment, Michael. Do you have anything before we wrap up that you just think
I
is
want
super
more fun
important?
questions, like the pizza ones. I like those.
Let me think. Let me rack my brain. I gotta come up with one more fun one. Oh man. Okay, when you were first starting out in advertising, what did the typical onboarding look like? Because I know my onboarding when I first started my job was sit in the IT room for 7 hours.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was a lot different when you started.
Let me think back, because it was a long time ago. It was twofold. One, it was a stack of paper to read. But the second was, and this was kind of cool, and I don't know if Publicis or any other agencies do this, you got to spend that first week with a different group every day. So I was in strategy at the time when I came in. So I got to spend a day with like the dealer group. I got to spend a day with the account group. I got to spend a day with the creative group. So that was a cool way to onboard. I don't even know if that exists anymore.
They do, yeah.
But it got me exposed to like the full breadth of the agency. So it was kind of cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, I kind of am thinking back to when I first came on, the things you kind of discover, like, oh my God, I didn't even know that existed, and like I'm working every day with this team,
exactly.
so that's so cool, and just, I mean, the stack of paper sounds intimidating, but almost better than maybe 7 hours in the IT office. I don't know. It's like lose maybe.
Right. Now it's probably just watching videos, right? Of like,
that was a lot of it, and just like so many logins, getting access to all the different accounts and all the different platforms, especially in like performance when you're getting all the social media platforms and stuff. It can be a lot.
I'm sure. Yeah.
But yeah, so like I said, that was really all I had for you for the rapid fire value. I do want to give you the chance. Is there anything that you just think is super valuable that you need to share with the next generation of marketers and advertisers while I got you here?
Hey, I've said it. I think it's the theme of the day is relationships. Like, go talk to people, go to these AdCraft events, go to these events. Don't sit in the back, and go walk up in front at the end of the program. Go introduce yourself. They're not going to remember you, but at least you have a way to, hey, I met you at the end as a follow-up, as an email. You never know where that's going to lead. It could lead to a new job. It could lead to, oh, you work there? Oh, I need an idea on this. You never know where it's going to lead. So I can't say enough about relationships. And that's, for me, that's been the biggest thing for me, because it established trust, gets you in the door, and you're a step ahead of anybody else.
Yeah, so. I couldn't agree more, and I mean, I think you're a prime example of why it's so important is because you can literally build an awesome, long career off of literally just building relationships. Michael, it was awesome having you on the show. Is there anywhere people can find you online if they want to learn more about you, or any students or young pros who want to reach out?
Yeah, LinkedIn. LinkedIn's great.
Michael Kraft, right?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, hit him up, ladies and gentlemen. He has already done a ton for me, just being a great person to chat with, kind of bounce ideas off of, and coming on the show now, it was awesome. Thank you as well, Michael, for coming on and let me use your beautiful studio here at MVP. Shout out MVP. If you need any experiential stuff done, I definitely know a guy you should reach out to as well. So thank you again, Michael. Thank you to our cameraman, Mike. He stayed here after hours to make sure we got our stuff taken care of. Thank you to him, and we will see you guys in the next one.